Hello all and welcome to our Crochet Designs. My name is Mary, coming to you with our open V-neck vest. Finally! And it's a tutorial that we've been waiting for a very long time. Now yours truly has had so many interruptions in between, but we're finally here. It's all ready and ready to go. However, if you have not done this piece right here, oh, how do you like that? That is our gauge swatch. You need to do that part first before we continue. All right, so go ahead and do that gauge swatch, and the tutorial for that gauge swatch, the very first tutorial that is of our vest, is in the description box down below. The very first video you see will be the gauge swatch to our beautiful vest. Yes, that's the vest that you see in the picture right here. Well, that's the start of our vest. Yes, that is the back of our vest, and that is what you're going to have done today. Oh, it's very exciting. But we need to get what first? We need to get two things. We need to talk quickly about the yarn, and secondly, we need to talk about measurements. And the yarn that we are using today is from the lovely Passioned Flower. Hope that's not blurring too much for you. And the colour is called Flowering Gum. It is simply divine, and you saw the color in the picture right there. How gorgeous is that color shade? I love it very much. It is called Harvest DK, which is a DK weight or a number 3 weight overseas, or an 8 ply. Yeah, it is 100% wool DK, again 8 ply. The skein that I used, or skein, was 100 grams, and it was approximately 217 meters or 237 yards. Now the hook size I'm using for this one is a 4mm hook, but make sure you check that gauge that you saw earlier before you do anything today. Yeah, all right, so the other thing you'll need to know is how much yarn will you need. So what I've done is, from extra small to medium, you'll need between 380 and 400 grams. Now I'm going to pop meters and yards up there in a moment as well. So these are rough measurements, guys, so don't judge me on it, but it's more than you need. Okay, for large to 2 extra large, you will need 400. Let's try that again. You'll need between 410 grams right up to 460 grams. Now this is if I'm giving you leeway, I'm giving you more than you need, and that is the measurements, the meters and the yardage that you'll need for your size. And for your larger sizes, you'll need at least up to 500 to 520 grams. And there's the meters and yards as well. I don't know where I've put it, but they're there. All right, so that's that. Now that's working on just the waist length. Now in a minute, I'm going to turn the mannequin around and we're going to take measurements real quickly. But in this tutorial, I've given you an option to do right down to hip length if you like. But I haven't added that extra yarn for that. So if you wanted to do all the way down to hip length, a little bit lower, it comes a little bit lower than hip length, you will need more yarn. Okay, so just heads up there. I worked on the waist length only. It's just below the waist length, like a little bit below the waist length for our design. All right, so let's turn this mannequin around. Let's turn it around and take measurements. So let's talk just quickly about the measurements. During this tutorial, you're going to see the measurements come up on the screen. Don't focus too much on the letters that say extra small, medium, large, whatever. Focus more on the numbers of your measurement. And those numbers are the widest part of your body, whether that be the chest, the waist, or the hips. Now, we're not focusing too much on the hips because ours is kind of like a little bit under waist length, just before the hip measurement. If you do the part where I say you can add an extra 18 stitches for the hip, then you need to take that hip measurement. But what we're going to do is take all 3 measurements today, and then you use the largest measurement you take. All right, so grab your measuring tape and you're going to do what we call the chest measurement or the bust measurement, and you're going to measure it from the widest, it's the widest part, right? She measured a 99 centimeters. I did that before, but it just dropped there. 99 centimeters, and that would be about 39 inches. All right, now let's try her waist. So far that's wide. Yeah, now the waist is 31 inches or 78.5 centimeters. So already we know that the bust or the chest is larger than her waist, so you're going on that measurement. But let's say you took your waist measurement. Let's try hip, sorry. You took your hip measurement. That's the widest part of your hip. I hope you can see that. Let's try that again because that didn't work. The widest part of your hip. It doesn't want to work for me. Excuse me a moment. So the widest part of your hip, which is 40.5 inches or roughly around 103 centimeters. This is just rough, just to show you measurements. Now, let's say for argument's sake her hips are bigger than her chest or her bust measurement, then you need to focus on that measurement, yeah? If her waist is bigger than her bust measurement, then you need to focus on that. But at this stage, we're going to focus only on the bust measurement because the pattern that I made is only for, it only goes down to the waist. I do give you the allowance to do more if you wanted to, but that would mean you need to focus on all three measurements and take the widest measurement of whichever one is all three. If you're going to do the hip length, okay? Now just remember the hip length. I haven't added enough yarn for the hip length, so you need to recalculate the measurements for your hip length, all right? So I'm not going to talk anymore. All the other details, oh yes, I do need to tell you exactly what, did I say I use a 4mm hook? Well, that's what you'll need. So you will need a 4mm hook, 2 stitch markers, scissors, and a sewing needle. I don't know if we do any weaving in of ends here. I would not weave anything in until we get parts 3 and 4 finished, because I can show you how to weave those ends in through to your border rows. All right, I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm just going to let you get started creating your gorgeous open V-neck vest. Good luck all. Alrighty guys, before you start anything, make sure you have created your gauge. Now the gauge swatch itself needs to be the same measurement or extremely close to the same measurement as mine. If you are out by 1 centimeter, your work is not going to be, it's not going to be correct. Yeah, it's going to be either too big or too small once it's complete. Now, if you haven't completed the gauge and would like to, I've left a link in the description box to the gauge. We created that last week. It's the very first link you come to, and you can head off on your own, create the gauge, and then meet us back here. It shouldn't take you too long to create, all right? But for the rest of us, we're going to start by making the back first. All right, so we're going to be working along the back this way, not with this little gauge swatch, but this is the way we're going to be working. All right, I am going to pause for just 1 second. It'll be 1 second for you and maybe 10 minutes for me, because I'm going to take this undone and use this for the back. All right, so I've taken my gauge swatch undone. I'm using the yarn to start my back. So grab the tail end of your yarn, wrap it around your finger once and twice, holding it there and holding it down there, yeah? Grab the back loop and pass it halfway over your finger, hold it there. Grab the other loop, passing it all the way over your finger, pop your hook in and give everything a tug. All right, we're going to start off by making chains. And a chain is yarn over your hook, pull it through to the loop on your hook, 1. Yarn over, pull through, 2. Yarn over, 3, yarn over, 4, yarn over, 5, and so on. All right, so you do 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right, so what I want you to do, don't take your hook out. I want you to look up on the screen now. This is all the sizes and the amount of chains that you need to chain. All right, so check your chest measurement, or if your waist and your hip measurement is bigger than your chest measurement, then use those, okay? Whichever is the biggest, because you need your vest to come right around you, because we are putting buttons and buttonholes on, okay? So you'll need one to tie up around you, around your whole waist and hip. If you are making the longer vest, which I'll talk about throughout the tutorial, or if you are making the waist length vest, if your waist is bigger than your chest, then you need to use that measurement. If your chest is bigger than your waist, then you need to use the chest measurement, all right? So head off on your own, do all the chains that you need to do for your measurements, and I'll meet you back here once you're done. right, so once you have all your chains, we're going to make a double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook. And a double crochet is yarn over your hook. Have a careful look at these chains. There is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we're going to pop our hook in that loop there. So we're going to count them again so you can see nice and close. 1, you can see that little loop there, kind of like a V looking thing. 1, 2, 3, and in that 4th one right there, the very top loop, you're popping your hook in like so, pulling a loop through, and you have 1, 2, 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops. You have 2 loops left. Yarn over, pull through the last 2 loops. Now you need a stitch marker. It's a little bit awkward to put the stitch marker here because your chains that you have there will act as the first double crochet in this row only. All right, so the first double crochet you've got that we did before was those 2 loops there. Right next to it, there is your chain. So you've got to find 2 top loops of the chain just before your stitch. So I'll give it a stretch so you can see. There's your stitch and there's your chains. All right, so pop it in those top loops. And we're going to double crochet in every stitch across. Now this is the stitch we are in here. We're going to skip that and go right into the next stitch. All right, because we're already in that one. So double crochet is yarn over your hook. You're already in that stitch there. Jump straight into that next top loop there. Pop your hook in, pull a loop through. 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2. 2 loops left, yarn over, pull through the last 2. All right, so that is in right there, and that is in the next one. And then you're going straight into the next one with, make sure you don't go in the same stitch, you're going straight into the very next one with your double crochet. All right, this is all this row is. Make sure you go into your very next one with your double crochet. It's super duper easy. This is why I say this is actually beginner friendly until we get to the front, and then it gets a bit tricky, but I still think it's beginner friendly even with the front. Yeah. All right, so I don't need to show you this. You can actually do these double crochets over and over and over and over again until you get to your very last stitch or 2 stitches, and we'll talk about what we're going to do once we arrive there. All right, so continue along the way, pop your double crochets until you get to the end, and I'll meet you there once you're done. Alrighty guys, so here we are at the end of our row. Now I haven't done my very last stitch so that I can show you where that is. Alright, so you're still popping your yarn over your hook. This is where I am. What you've got is that stitch there and a little knot right there. That is a knot and not a stitch, okay? But the one right next to it, right there, is a stitch. Pop your hook in, pull a loop through, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, 2 loops, yarn over, pull through the last 2, and what you should have is a tiny little knot sitting on the end there. All right, now what you need to do is you actually need to count your stitches across, and what we're going to do in a minute is count the stitches. But see the counts that you see right there? Have a look at your largest size again, your chest, your waist, your hip, whichever that may have been, and that's the amount of stitches that you should have across. All right, now this is how we count our stitches. All right, so we grab, I'm just going to grab a little needle to show you. These little V things here, they are stitches. All right, so that is 1 stitch, and that is 2 stitch, and so on all the way through. All right, the length of the stitch here is called a post, but the top part is called a stitch. Yeah, then you've got front loops, back loops. We don't want to talk about those right now. I just want you to count your stitches all the way across until you get to the end. Make sure you have the amount of stitches that you see on the screen right here, right now. So go ahead, count your stitches, and we'll get on to the next step. All right, so let's move right along. Now, with this vest, because we are working, our work is going to be worked this way, we want the base of our vest to be nice and straight. Yeah, so we're going to do a different start to what I usually do. We're not going to chain anything. We're going to turn our piece like normal. So you're going to be working along here, yeah. But what you're going to do in the very first stitch you see, and if you're not sure, just give everything a tug, and that's the stitch you are in. All right, you're going to pop your hook in that stitch with your 2 loops on top, pull a loop through like so, and you have a single crochet, yarn over your hook, pull a loop through like so. Then you're going to hold on to the loop up the top and see these 2 loops here. You're going to crochet into the base loop, or the side base loop as I like to call it. Pop your hook in, pull a loop through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through both those loops. That is as what a lot of people call a standing double crochet. I'm going to try that again for you because it was a little tricky, because usually I put chains and everything, but we're not going to do that here. Okay, we're just going to pop our hook, we're holding on to the thread here, pop our hook into the stitch, pull a loop through like normal, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2. Hold your loop, you're going straight into the base loop only, pull a loop through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through both those loops. Grab yourself a second stitch marker, and that needs to go through the top 2 loops of that stitch, being careful not to split it, because on the way back sometimes it's a little tricky to work out where you put your crochet hook. Yeah, but in the meantime, guess what we're going to do? Super duper easy. See these little tiny spaces you see up the top, little stitches. We're going to be putting double crochets in each of those stitches. So yarn over your hook, straight into that very first stitch with your little V looking thing on top, pull a loop through, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, 2 loops left, yarn over, pull through the last 2, and guess what? That's it. That is how easy it is. Making sure you don't miss any stitches. If you're not sure, just give your work a tug and you can see the very next space. So yarn over your hook, straight into the very next space. Now being careful not to place your hook under the stitch. You want to go into the stitch only, not under in the space down there, into the stitch right there. All right, super duper easy for beginners, this stitch. All right, and we are going to do our double crochets all the way across. Fantastic. All right, not going to sit here and let you watch me do all these double crochets. Your job now is to do your double crochets across, get to the end of this row, and I will meet you back here once you're done. Alrighty guys, here we are at the end of our second row, and I asked you to get to your second last stitch, which is right there, because this stitch marker is your last stitch. So yarn over your hook, see if you can pop your hook in the stitch with your stitch marker. If it's anything like mine, it's very tight, so I'm going to take mine undone. But if you can make your double crochet in the top of that stitch, and if you've done what I've done and you can't find it anymore, it's that loop right there and the second loop on the other side right there. So you've got your 2 loops on top of it there, yeah? So you pull a loop through like so, 3 loops on your hook, and do or complete your double crochet. And what you have is that. Now once again, your stitches should be what you see up there on the screen now. That's how many stitches you should have. Now that shouldn't change for a while, okay, because we are going to add some rows, but that is how many stitches you should have. Add the extra 18 stitches if you did the hip length, all right? So let's continue. Actually, what I will do, I'm telling a lie, let's not continue. I will actually tell you to repeat this row that we did right here for the amount of rows for your size. all right? So I'll pop that up on the screen there. There you go. That's the amount of rows you need to complete for your size. So just do the last row we did for those amount of rows right there that you see, and I will meet everyone back and we'll talk about what we're going to do next, and it'll be like the increase to raise up near the armhole. All right, so go ahead and do these rows right here now for your size, and I'll meet you back here once you're done. Alrighty guys, here I am at the end of my rows. Very exciting. Make sure you have the same amount of stitches across here that you started off with. So go ahead and count that now, and we will get on with the next step. There are the stitches. Don't forget to add the extra for your hip length. If you added extra in the beginning, you need to add those extra stitches, yeah? All right, in the meantime, I think I might have, oh no, it's just tight. We're going to finish off the row. Just, you know how to do it because we've been doing it all along. It's just, oh, mine's so tight. Mine is so tight. All right, so finish your row, okay? So what you're going to do here now is, let me bring this out a bit. There we go. So from here, this is what we're going to do. The pattern is going to change. We're going to start from here and we're going to start working our way up very gradually, okay? But for starters, let's do this. We're going to start our row like normal, all right? So flip your work like normal, and you're going to do your standing double crochet in that first stitch, and we'll talk about that in a minute too. So pop your side loop there, base loop I should say, a side base loop, pop your stitch marker in like normal. Nothing's changed here except the next stitch. All right, with the next stitch normally we go straight into our very next stitch and we go across. Pop a yarn over your hook. What I want you to do now for this row only, because we're going to have a 2-row repeat. So for this row only, pop a double crochet in the same stitch that you are in. So you're in that little stitch there, so yarn over your hook directly into the same stitch, pull a loop through, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, 2 loops left, yarn over, pull through the last 2. So you've done your first increase, okay? Then for the rest of the row, you are doing a normal double crochet in every stitch. All right, so that is all you do in this row to make that little gradual rise along the side of your chest area, okay? I'm sorry, your underarm area. Double crochet all the way across. So what you have now is, you'll notice a little bit of that coming up. So it's going to start to raise up. This area here, this side here, will always be straight. This is the base of your vest now. It's right at your hip, unless you're doing the, I'm sorry, that's right at your waist, unless you're doing the hip measurement, which is there. But regardless of whether you're doing the hip or the waist, it will always remain straight. So if this starts to curve, it's wrong, okay? Your only curving you're doing is on this side of your work. So this is going to be 1 row all the way across. Get to that stitch marker right there, and I will meet you back here once you're done. Alrighty guys, here we are at the end of the row. Yep. So let's pop our hook in our very last stitch there and do your double crochet like normal. Yes, but now your count has changed because we have done that extra stitch in the beginning of the row. So you should have, now check up on the screen right there now, you should have this many stitches across for your measurements. All right, so make sure you stay focused on the change of your count. All right, that's going to happen more often over the next few rows. So in the meantime, let's flip our work, get excited. This is the second repeat row. So you've done 1 row that you're going to repeat, not yet, you'll do it later. Now this is the second row that you're going to repeat. So pop your normal standing double crochet in your first stitch on this side. Now remember that this is the base of your work, all right? So you don't increase on this side. You keep your rows straight. And again, I keep saying we're going to talk about that, and I will eventually in a minute, she says. All right, just double crochet all the way across, which is very simple. You know what you're doing there. All the way across until you get to this guy right here. Do the stitch just before it, like your second last stitch, and wait for me there, and we'll talk about what we're going to do next. Alrighty guys, here we are at the end of the second row repeat. Alright, still straight down there, and over here, after this row, you'll start to notice how it's all moving over. Alright, so I asked you to get to that second last stitch. You're going to pop one double crochet in the last stitch for a moment. So do your double crochet. And the reason I say for a moment is because you're going to pop a second one in the same stitch. So take out your stitch marker and do a second one all in the same stitch. Now this is where we're going to have some instructions. All right, I'm just going to pop my stitch marker in this loop right there. Oh, not in the stitch, not in the thread, in the loop, so I can talk to you, and if I pull this, it's not going to come undone. All right, so you can now start to see how this is turning up a little bit. That's what we want. That's going to be the start of your underarm. So it's going to start to go like that. And by the time you finish your rows, which I'll explain in a minute, it'll probably be around there, and then we're going to add some stitches and we're going to work along the whole piece. But for now, I just wanted to show, and I keep talking about it, why I'm so pedantic about this particular stitch is because, have a careful look at it. How gorgeously straight is this stitch? Also, no big gaps in between your stitches at the front. This is why I love using the standing double crochet. Sometimes I used to chain, or I don't do this anymore, I would chain at the beginning or the end of each row, whichever suits you, and it would leave a tiny little bump all the way up, and I didn't like it because you're going to wear your vest like this. It's going to be worn across this way or that way, whatever in this case, and the base of your vest will be here. So I want the base to be gorgeously straight and not have any gaps, and the top to start to curve and also not have any big major gaps in front. When we crochet our border later, we're going to be crocheting through these stitches of our standing double crochet. Anyway, we won't worry about that for now. Let's just bring that down. Hello. There we go. We worry about just continuing these next two rows. Now, before you continue, one more thing you need to do is check your count. Your stitches across your row should be that. All right. So if your stitches are not what you see up there on the screen, check that you haven't missed a stitch or added a stitch you shouldn't have, and so on. All right. But your job now, very easy job, is to repeat these two rows over and over again for your size. All right, for your measurements. So what I want you to do now is have a look up on the screen, and there's the rows, the amount of rows that you need to repeat for your size. All right, so for your size, as you can see up there, you're repeating the two rows over and over again for that size. You've already done your two rows. Now you need to do that many more. All right, so I hope that made sense. I'll leave that information at the end of this section too for you, but that is your job now. Head off on your own, repeat those last two rows. So your next row, you'll be starting your increase by putting 2 in there and then going across and doing your double. And your next row after that, you'll be going across and you'll be putting 2 in the last stitch. Never change this side of your work. All right, so head off on your own, repeat these last 2 rows over and over again for your size, which is right there, and I shall meet you back here once you're done. Alrighty guys, here we are at the end of this section. You should have one straight side and you should have another side that goes like that, which is normal. And what you should also have is this many rows and this many stitches for your size. So make sure you've counted your stitches, you've counted your rows, and now you're ready to make the next step. Now the next step is, guys, right here, we're going to raise this all the way up and we're going to start on making our shoulder area, if you will, yeah? So what you would have gotten to on the end of your repeat rows is the area of the rise, yeah? So from here, we're not going to turn, we're going to chain again. So we're going to start by chaining 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so what I want you to do now is have a look on the screen right there, and you will notice that they're the chains, or that's the amount of chains that you need altogether. We've already done 5, so you need a further whatever that is for your piece. All right, so for your sides, I should say. So what I want you to do is continue your chains until you get to your size amount, and I'll do mine here, and we'll just put this on fast for you. And remember, we've done 5. Remember the count that you need. Whatever you do, don't take your hook out and leave it nice and straight, and I'll talk about that later. So we've done 5. Now keep chaining until the count you need, and I'll pop this on fast for you so you don't have to hear me. So what I want you to do now is to keep it nice and steady, and as though you were going to do your normal double crochets across, but you're not doing double crochet yet. You're going to chain 1 more chain there. All right, now let me get a close-up for you. So we did that last chain. Then we want to go into the very next chain and do our standing double crochet, starting with your single crochet first, like so. And then your side base single crochet, and you now have your standing double crochet, grabbing your stitch marker like so. All right, then you're going to continue doing double crochets along every stitch. All right, so that's what I meant by keeping your work nice and straight. Now you won't have any problems. You're already in that stitch there. You want to go into the very next stitch and into the double crochet. With the double crochet. It's not a double crochet, it's a chain. All right, so into every chain. All right, so yarn over your hook and keep doing your double crochets until you get down to your piece. So let's bring that down a little bit. Let's try a bit more. All right, so I'm going to pop this on fast. We're going to get to the last 2 chains before, I might have to bring this up a bit more, before we get to the end of the row, and wait for me there. All right, I asked you to get to the last 2 or 3 chains. Let's see how many I've got left. 1 and 2, and then we start on our double crochet. So yarn over our hook, we're going to go straight into the very next stitch and do a double crochet. And right into the very last chain, you can see it there, how it's got that really big gap before we get into our stitch, yeah? So go right into that last chain there. And then all you're doing is jumping into the stitch. Remember the 2 stitches we had there? You're jumping into the first one with 1 double crochet only, jump into that second one that's in that stitch there with 1 double crochet only, and guess what? That, my dears, is that was the most difficult part of this part of the pattern, seriously. So the rest is going to be easy. All you need to do is do I can't even get this in, hey? Do a double crochet in every stitch until you get to your stitch marker. Yep. And what I want to do, I'm going to take out this stitch marker for now. You don't need to. I'm going to place a stitch marker right. I'll place it in the stitch that we've just done. Right? You don't need to do that. Well, you can actually, yes. Pop a stitch marker in the stitch that we've just done. All right? What I want you to do is complete this row, turn, and then do a normal double crochet row all the way across. Remember, this is your flat edge, so there's no raising or doing anything with it. You're doing a standing double crochet and double crochet all the way over to this stitch marker right here. Get there, and let's bring this out. Can we bring it out more? Oh, there we go. There we go, that's better. Pop your standing double crochet here. Go all the way over to this stitch marker right here, and I'll meet you there once you're done. Alrighty guys, so I asked you to get to the stitch marker right here, not for any reason, just to show you that that's where we had our chains before, yeah? We're just going to take out a stitch marker, like I said, not for any reason, because everything is exactly the same. Double all the way across. I make it sound so exciting. It is exciting, guys. You don't have to do anything. It is very simple. Did I mention that it was simple? Let me see. How many times have I said it's simple today? The only difficult part was the chains, and that wasn't difficult because you guys know how to do chains now. So really, everything else is just repetitive. And sorry about the noise. It's the stitch marker on the board. But there you go. There's your stitch. Be careful. Make sure you get into every stitch. All the way across the row. Yay. Very exciting. And it goes to show that once you have your this strip here done, everything is exactly the same. So at the end of this row, we're going to have some very, very interesting instructions. So get excited, get excited. All right, so I'm going to pop this on fast, and I want you to double crochet all the way across until you get to that noisy stitch marker. All right, so let's go ahead and do that now, and off we go. Alrighty guys, I'm on my second last stitch here. Yep, and right here is our last stitch. What are you going to do? Nothing. Same thing as you usually do. Well, you are going to do something. But the same thing as you usually do. You do your double crochet, taking out your stitch marker. And let's bring this down a little bit. And then all you're doing is flipping your work. I'm just going to do the start for you, which is the standing double crochet that you know how to do anyway. It's a bit hard to do from far away. Well, it's a bit hard to do. All right, so you know how to do that standing double crochet. Yep. I'm going to pop a little stitch marker just in this loop here so that it doesn't go missing if I walk away. All right, so let's talk instructions. Now, I can't bring the camera lens out anymore, or you'll be seeing the outside of my backyard. There you go. So, all right, what we have is this. Now, I didn't mention before, I did put a disclaimer up, so that's good, how many stitches across you should have had, okay? But I'm actually going to tell you now what stitches that you should have all the way across. When you did your first section, that's what you should have all had for your size. So that was the row before. That's how many stitches you should have had for your first section.
Once you added the rest of your stitches on, you would have had that many stitches that you see right there, right now. All right, so now that you have completed your second row, you should still have that many stitches for your size. All right, now the reason I'm showing you all of this now is because guess what? We are going to do the rest of our rows over and over and over again until we get to the measurement for our size. This is all we're doing for now. We're going to work on that to make the rest of the back from one shoulder all the way over to the other shoulder. All right, so I hope that makes sense. All you need to do and all you need to think about is repeat this row that you just did for 1,000,000 rows, okay? Not 1,000,000 rows, for this many rows for your size. All right, we've already completed 2 rows. It says there you've done 2 rows, now do another, and that's another for your size. All right, hope that makes sense there with the images. Yep. All right, so here are these instructions. Head off on your own, complete all of these rows now. Meet me back here in a week's time and we will continue this part of our vest, okay? Head off on your own, do your rows, and I'll meet you back here in a week's time. Good luck all.